In an interview with Axios, Donald Trump said he may issue an executive order ending birthright citizenship. He said that you actually don't need an act of Congress and you might not actually have to amend the Constitution. This resulted in a fierce debate with the left saying that the 14th Amendment is clear. If you're born here, you are a citizen. But the right is pointing out that the 14th Amendment says you must be subject to U.S. jurisdiction. The argument is, if you are born of foreign parents, you are not subject to U.S. jurisdiction, therefore you are not a citizen. And in fact, when it comes to diplomats, their children who are born here are not immediately U.S. citizens. So therein lies the issue. Can Donald Trump actually issue an executive order ending birthright citizenship? Yes, he can. But will the courts uphold it? Probably not. However, probably not is not no. There is a possibility the courts do side with Trump and they change an old opinion on the 14th Amendment. So today, let's take a look at the issue of ending birthright citizenship and what exactly people are saying. But before we get started, let me give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, SafeBolt. SafeBolt is a secure email and cloud data service. They encrypt your information to protect you from prying eyes of Big Brother or anybody who just wants to steal your information. For my work emails, I'm actually going to be encrypting them with SafeBolt from now on, and I will have that email address up on my Twitter account and in the description of this video. Right now, you can get a 50% off deal by using the coupon code Tim.Pool 20% off or going to emailwithtim.com. So for those that are interested, the link will be in the description below, and I look forward to hearing your messages. From the Associated Press, Trump, end birthright citizenship for some U.S.-born babies. President Donald Trump is making another hardline immigration play in the final days before the midterm elections, declaring that he wants to order an end to the constitutional right to citizenship for babies born in the United States to non-citizens. Most scholars think he can't implement such a change unilaterally. With 7 days to go before high-stakes elections that he has sought to focus on fear-mongering over immigration, Trump made the comments to Axios on HBO. Trump, seeking to energize his supporters and help Republicans keep control of Congress, has stoked anxiety about a caravan of Central American migrants making its way to the U.S.-Mexico border. Let's just stop right here and point out that while the Associated Press typically is good at what they do, this is an opinion. What Trump is doing may or may not have to do with fear-mongering or rallying his base around immigration. Look, it's my opinion that's true, but that's my opinion, and I think it would be important for the Associated Press to stick to the facts. But let's move on. Trump has long called for an end to birthright citizenship, as have many conservatives. An executive order would spark an uphill legal battle for Trump about whether the president has the unilateral ability to declare that children born in the U.S. to those living here illegally aren't citizens. Most scholars think he can't. Asked about the legality of such an order, Trump said, "They're saying I can do it with just an executive order." He added that we're the only country in the world where a person comes in and has a baby, and that baby is essentially a citizen of the United States. A 2010 study from the Center for Immigration Studies, a group that supports immigration restrictions, showed that 30 countries offer birthright citizenship. Almost immediately, everyone offered up their opinions as to whether or not he had a right to do this or didn't. You've got people on the right highlighting statements from old senators talking about how this wasn't intended to grant citizenship to the children of foreign nationals. You have people on the left saying the ruling has been changed. But what they're both missing is that Trump absolutely can do it. It's just going to go to the courts, and by most people's account, the courts will not uphold it. But keep in mind, they might. There's a possibility they can. So the issue isn't black and white. There's a possibility this could happen. However, in my opinion, I think this is more about posturing before the midterm elections. Look, I agree with the AP. I just said what I said because I don't think they should include their opinion in a news piece. But let's take a look at what some people think about what's going to happen. From the National Review, can Trump end birthright citizenship by executive order? They start by saying, on substance, I believe Trump is right on birthright citizenship. The 14th Amendment does not require it. I do not believe, however, that the president may change the interpretation of the 14th Amendment, which has been in effect for decades by executive order, as he is reportedly contemplating. The story points out that it's not just the 14th Amendment, but Congress has enacted statute section 1401 of the Immigration and Naturalization Laws. In pertinent part, it appears merely to codify in statutory law what the 14th Amendment says, including among U.S. citizens is any, quote, person born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. But that means the issue is not just what jurisdiction was understood to mean in 1868 when the 14th Amendment was adopted, but what it meant in 1952 when the statute defining U.S. citizenship was enacted. They end by saying, consequently, if the president actually issues an executive order changing the birthright citizenship policy, I doubt the sun will set before an injunction is issued. I am in favor of changing the current understanding of birthright citizenship, but I believe such a change must be done by statute to have any hope of surviving court scrutiny. And even then, I give it less than a 50-50 chance. At the heart of the argument is what it says in the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. The key point is the phrase subject to the jurisdiction thereof. When a diplomat moves here and they have kids, those kids are not citizens because they have immunity from the law. Therefore, they're not subject to U.S. jurisdiction. The argument then states that illegal immigrants aren't subject to U.S. law because they're foreign nationals. So when they have kids, those kids aren't citizens. Now, people on the right are highlighting statements made by senators in 1866. One notable individual, Jack Posobiec, said, "How many talking heads in media will take the time to look up the congressional record of 1866 to see what the authors of the 14th Amendment actually said it means?" Posobiec did. And he has this image here, which he says is from the congressional record. He highlighted a section that says, "This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States, but will include every other class of persons." I'm seeing a lot of people on the right share this, saying you need to look up these quotes as to what they actually meant about the 14th Amendment. And I can understand that. However, an issue arose in the late 1800s where someone's citizenship was challenged and the Supreme Court issued their opinion. BuzzFeed News highlights the ruling in their story, saying, "The Supreme Court specifically ruled on the issue in 1898, deciding that the U.S. could not deny citizenship to anyone born in the country. The court can revisit opinions, but it doesn't appear likely justices would choose to overturn this precedent." The facts of the case. The Chinese Exclusion Acts denied citizenship to Chinese immigrants. Moreover, by treaty, no Chinese subject in the United States could become a naturalized citizen. Wong Kim Ark was born in San Francisco. At age 21, he returned to China to visit his parents, who had previously resided in the United States for 20 years. When he returned to the U.S., Wong was denied entry on the ground that he was not a citizen. Question: could the government deny citizenship to persons born in the United States in violation of the 14th Amendment? And the conclusion was, no. The government could not deny citizenship to anyone born in the United States. To reach this conclusion, Justice Gray's tedious majority opinion managed to traverse much of Western civilization. So in my opinion, Trump is technically wrong, right? He can issue the executive order. The courts will likely shoot it down. There is a possibility that the courts could reverse the decision from 1898, but as it stands today, the general understanding in the Constitution and in U.S. law, set in 1952, is that people who are born here are in fact citizens. But the debate isn't over, and so long as the debate continues, we can change our laws, we can make amendments. And there's something that I wanted to point out. A lot of people are saying all that matters is what the Constitution says. And because it says a person born here is a citizen, Trump cannot change that. However, there's an argument about the First and Second Amendment. The First Amendment says that the U.S. shall make no law infringing freedom of speech. We do, in fact, have laws that you can't say certain things. You can't incite people to violence. And what about the Second Amendment? It says that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. But we have many laws on what people can and cannot own or carry or keep in their houses, period. There are rules as to what kind of guns you can have. There are rules as to what you can say. The Constitution, as it is written, is not being upheld. The Supreme Court has issued rulings on the interpretation of these amendments time and time again. And if you were to read the Second Amendment to the letter of the law, yeah, you could own a belt-fed machine gun. If you were to read the First Amendment to the letter of the law, you could incite people to violence. You have the right to free speech. But over time, we have decided that a complete blanket interpretation of this isn't beneficial. There are some restrictions that are going to be put in place, and there are going to be changes to the interpretation of the amendment. Or possibly, we're just trying to understand what the founders meant. But as time goes on, our understanding of certain words changes. Some people argue that in the Second Amendment, it says a well-regulated militia. And they say what the founders meant was that they didn't mean regulated as in government regulation, they just meant regulated as in regulars have guns. And regulated means if you're an organized body, you have guns. Therefore, they're only referring to arms. People dispute this. I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm not a legal expert. These are just some of the arguments I've heard. And so I can only conclude on my limited understanding of what's going on that if you can say the First Amendment does not mean incitement to violence or creating a disturbance, if the Second Amendment does not include owning belt-fed 7.62 machine guns, then why does the 14th Amendment have to be so strict? Why are we even talking about it? Well, it's been brought up a couple times, and I said on Twitter that I felt like this was a distraction, that Trump was trying to keep people focused on immigration. With the migrant caravan coming, it's a great issue for Republicans because Democrats are weak on border security. But someone pointed out that Trump has actually been talking about this for a while, and that's true. And opinions have been published over the past several years talking about this issue. So I think it's fair to say that the issue actually exists, that Trump probably is looking at it and trying to figure out what he can do. But in the Axios interview, they goaded Trump into talking about it. Trump didn't just bring this up. He wasn't sitting there and said, by the way, let's talk about birthright citizenship. They asked him about it. They asked him if he would end it by executive order, and he said, you know what? Yeah, I might do that. So in my opinion, Trump saw an opportunity to say, listen, let's talk about immigration. This is a great thing to talk about. It'll keep people on focus. It'll keep people like me talking about it on YouTube. It keeps everybody on CNN and Fox News and the Associated Press talking about immigration, which is great for the Republicans. Does that mean Trump is only doing it so he can rally his base? Not necessarily, but I definitely think he sees the opportunity. Axios, in my opinion, goaded Trump into talking about it because they knew it would generate buzz and get them good ratings. And here I am saying Axios now for like the fourth or fifth time. It's kind of scary to me that so much of our politics is dictated by someone who runs a media business trying to generate conflict or controversy so that people will watch what they do. The conversation then shifts and people are forced to adhere to it. It's kind of like the saying that politics are downstream from culture. I wonder why the Democrats are becoming so weak on border security, and I have a theory. Something that happens in media is this domino effect of bad press. About 90% of the stories that come out about Donald Trump are negative. Here's what happens. Someone writes a story saying Donald Trump is a blowhard. It gets 1 million views. Well, they can't write the same article twice, so then they write an article saying, well, Donald Trump is pretty racist, and that gets 1 million views. Then they write Donald Trump is the worst racist. Then they say, Donald Trump is the worst we've ever seen. He's a white supremacist. And they keep escalating because the escalation generates what's called the Trump bump. This is a real thing that people talk about, that ratings go up when you're negatively talking about Donald Trump. Because of this, every time Trump talked about the wall, they had to escalate the rhetoric, and it became an issue of racism. Trump wants to build a wall because he's racist. But in fact, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, even Bernie Sanders, and many Democrats today were in favor of building a border barrier. What's the difference? The word barrier or wall? What happens then is Democrats cannot embrace the idea of a wall and border security out of fear of being called racist by the media. The media has chased the narrative so hard that Trump is racist for wanting to build a barrier, and now the left can't embrace something that most Americans would probably agree with. The left is being fractured because they adhere to what the media says. But Trump supporters don't trust the media, and they just go by what Trump says. This puts the Democrats at a disadvantage, and it means they're going to be pushed around by the narrative of the mainstream media, and Donald Trump will not. At least a little bit. But let me know what you think in the comments below. We'll keep the conversation going. What do you think about all this? Do you think it's a distraction? Do you think Trump actually will do this? Do you think they actually have the power and the right to redefine what birthright citizenship is? As we saw in 1898, the Supreme Court ruled, if you're born here, you're a citizen. But that doesn't mean the opinions can't be changed. It doesn't mean the Supreme Court won't side with Trump. Probably not. Does not mean no. And Trump might actually win on this one. So again, comment below, let me know what you think. We'll keep the conversation going. You can follow me on Twitter at Timcast. Stay tuned, new videos every day at 4 p.m. And I've got more videos coming up on my second channel, youtube.com/TimCastNews at 6 p.m. Again, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all next time.